All right, here we go. Just one moment. Okay, we are all set. All right, welcome everyone. This is I think I figured out it was our 14th meeting. Shouldn't last too long. Thank you for coming. Those of you who happen to be on YouTube Live, sorry I was a little late, but we're ready to go. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Slideshow. There we go. Should say March 10th, but somehow I lost a day there. All right, here's our travel schedule. I'll start off with that right away. We have the dates for travel and the transportation plus chaperone fee. It's included in the numbers we have there for our tours. We've even put up the summer tour to make it user-friendly for people who have 11th grade students. Probably doesn't apply to you, though. We didn't show the additional lodging fee. There's additional lodging fee for Boise State. It'll probably end up being more like $100 than 150 that's shown. But we're just going with one deadline date on here. Let me see. Do I show a deadline date, Quinn? Yeah, I do. Yeah, the deadlines are over to the right. Once you hit that date, we might have to reprice. Other times we don't have to reprice. Okay, so oftentimes it's okay the price still. So go ahead and take a look at those. Go online and register. That'll cause me to call you and talk to you. We always screen before we buy tickets and do things like that. And if your student's interested in going on any of these trips, let me know. That trip to Sacramento State is our first official trip ever to Sacramento State. They'll be only too happy to have us there, though, I hear. That's Karen Moore setting that up, and it should be a very excellent trip to that school. It's a nice university. Some of you may have been accepted there this year. I'm not sure. All right. Certainly, some of those viewing this video later on might realize they're accepted. But take a look at this travel schedule, okay? You might find it interesting. Let's see who got into Sonoma State around here. I'm not sure who. Somebody in here. Who got in Sonoma State? Yell at me. Anybody here? Quite a few got in, but maybe nobody here. I guess that's what it is. Probably somebody's yelling at YouTube Live. Yeah, I got in. I got in. Okay, any questions out there on this? All right, let's continue. Let's review the financial aid report status. The federal government announced that the FAFSA data will not go to colleges until mid-March. As you know, typically beforehand, they will get that data as early as October, because that's when the filing started. Some colleges didn't even look at the data till December, but that still was earlier than now. So they're saying, the government's saying mid-March. But what we don't know is, college people have told me they will need training to know how to use the data in the format the government gives them, because the government did not provide a lot of training. Now, I hear that they've sent 50 trainers out, but they pretty much, from what I read, only went to Black colleges. There's some kind of an equity decision to only go to Black colleges. I understand the chancellor of CSU and the chancellor of UC flew to DC to say why. We have the largest state university system in the country, and you're not sending anybody out. The financial aid people need training too, just on how to bring the data in and how to use it. Okay, there may be a 1-month delay, therefore, after the mid-March date. But see, they say mid-March, but they didn't really give a date. So some of us think it's later in March. If you're following this, that means later in April for awards, with earliest awards, which is why they're having to move their May 1st due dates to June 1st, because they kind of feel you need a month to look at your awards. Otherwise, you just have one day, right? Or a few days. Or maybe not even that if it goes into June. Goes into May, I mean. That's why a lot of the CSU and UC have said the date's June 1st. And the Cal Grant date is now April 2nd. But I'm pretty sure that's going to have to change to May 2nd really soon here. So the financial aid deadline is the same, has been moved also in CSUs. Typically they needed up to 12 weeks to produce the award. But I guess they can't do that this year, huh? They can't take 3 months this year. National Decision Day has been May 1st. Hence, colleges are moving it to May 15th and even July 1st. I put that should be June 1st, actually. So May 15th and June 1st. So the above raises some interesting questions, doesn't it now? When can I add schools and make other changes? Because some of you, I even filed your FAFSAs. You said, oh, wow, I may need to add some schools. Well, the feds say that won't be able to happen until mid-March. Of course, that brings up another interesting question. When will that data get to colleges? Will it be another month for that? Another 2 months? Or will they just begin to getting all data at that point? There's a lot of interesting questions. They clearly were not ready to launch the new FAFSA this year. What is the new Cal Grant deadline? April 2nd, although I'm thinking they're going to have to change it. To UCs and CSUs have new financial aid due dates, April 2nd. If you're with me, you already have your FAFSA filed probably. How can I productively use the delay? Travel to colleges and knowing good estimates of what your college will cost. And I got the idea because students who've applied to Grand Canyon received something very interesting in their email that I thought was very insightful and very thoughtful. They still receive estimates of what school will cost based on the parents' revenue. They only asked them about their revenue. And they qualified the revenue by asking for both parents' revenue. And then they made a disclaimer that the person had to sign in order to get the report from them, which was, you understand that if we get the FAFSA that's different, your award may change. But at Grand Canyon, they're only giving merit awards. So they're basically checking to see if you're going to get federal aid or not. And it's easy to know if you'll get federal aid. It's very easy to know. I gave some of those numbers last week, but I'm looking around this room right here. The people in here know whether they will get a Pell Grant or not, meaning that the income in the house, the maximum Pell would be $40,000 income, and you could get a small Pell at $55,000 to $60,000 if you have 4 people in your family. Okay, so most people know whether they're going to get or not get a Pell Grant. So that's how Grand Canyon is doing. That's how I'm going to do it. Basically, the only people that I think have a significant question are those people who are going to look at private schools and have super high grades. Now the question becomes, how much of an award will they receive based on need? Pretty much if there's not a lot of financial need and you have high grades, most private schools, as I've said to you before, you're going to pay $25,000 to $55,000 regardless, unless something happens that's very different and momentous. It's rare, by the way. Admission acceptance. Let's talk about, since we're close to that point, some people are beginning to think about accepting their admissions once they know kind of what it will cost. I should probably linger back on that for a minute. So if you're sitting there and you're looking at CSU and your student did not get super high grades, that means they won't get a chancellor's award or anything like that. And maybe not even a Cal Grant because of the family income. So you know to live on the campus, depending on the CSU, will run you $22,000 to $29,000 minus the student's direct loan. I think I told you last week, they should take it out. The students should pay something for college. So you can figure that you subtract off $17,000 to $24,000 is what your out-of-pocket is going to be. You can bank on that, parents, bank on it. So if you want to start getting housing and making that decision, or make this trip with us, make the decision. You don't have to wait to the deadline. I've never said that before, but this year's unusual. And I'm a little concerned that housing will be taken up by people who realize that and want to take that chance, which means that the housing situation is not that equitable. Because this is a family that's really wealthy, they'll just go ahead and decide to go, whereas families who are in the middle or undecided won't decide to go to a school. All right, I hope that helps. I'll take questions on that. And then people who are still looking at multiple schools, this is the time of year I usually say before I go to the next view graph, I should say, if you're going to deposit to multiple schools, the question is, how far will you go and when will you stop? In other words, how far will you go means you'll see a little later. Will you make all the deposits through the orientation, which could be hundreds of dollars? How far will you go? Will you make the housing deposit too? And then when will you stop? How many schools? Because the deposit for the school is not refundable. And those could go from $100 to $800, depending on the school. So really there needs to probably be some consideration and some thought about, and I didn't put this view graph in, so I'm gonna do a separate view graph on a view graph, a separate presentation, about a 3-minute presentation on what process will you use to make the decision. It's actually a very interesting question. It's probably the most important question right now, how you will decide. If my wife came back here and said, you want anchovies on your pizza, which I'm thinking about getting one of those healthy pizzas after this. And they could say, well, what do you want anchovies on it? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And the way I kind of decide is what I feel like having. And you can't do college like that, but that's a simple process. But your processes are a lot more interesting because you might have a lot of moving parts. Maybe it's good to say this. Here's the colleges I won't visit. I won't visit a school. Here are the colleges that I won't deposit for. I won't visit a school. My mind is on that. That's the next view graph. I won't enroll in a school until I visited the school. And I mean visited with students present. You should not blindly go to a school. That does not work out a lot of times. There are a lot of times it doesn't work out. And I have a psychological theory about why it doesn't work out, but it just doesn't work out as much as you think. All right, let's go on. Remember, visiting a school. Maybe this becomes the discussion of how you decide where to visit and when to visit. Because since I've said that, I know people applied to multiple schools, but you probably can only visit 3 and not be pushing it unless you just totally forget about school. You can only really visit 3 of them. And usually money is an issue too. How many can you afford to visit? Especially with airfares I'm finding this year are way up. These are the highest prices that I've gone for the community prices I had this year. I couldn't believe the prices that Southwest offered me. So travel is for us, about 12% higher this year. And I don't know I guess the public is higher as well. So got to factor all it in. The question is wherever you visit, because that's the number one factor will determine whether you won't go to a school, because you're not going to go to school you don't visit. Now, you may visit a school you don't go to. It happens all the time. All right. Again, if there's any questions, please let me know. Did we send the view graph copy out? That's for Quinn or somebody.
No, not yet.
Yeah, go ahead and send them the PDF of that. Is there a question in the chat? Brianna?
No, there's no questions in the chat.
Oh, no. Okay, I thought I saw one. I'm curious. I'm gonna look. Oh, maybe it's just me. Hold on. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, let's continue. Okay, let's talk about admissions acceptance, because I think we're going to have people accepting early and late and all over the place. The earliest I ever did some of these view graphs in here. Admission acceptance information, deposits and payments. Here we go. Deposits for admissions or registration deposit, it's called other things too, I can't think of the other names, is non-refundable. Okay? And that's the first of 3 to 4 deposits or payments that a school is looking for. But the deposit for the school is non-refundable. And there are a couple of schools like Sonoma, GW, I think one other school back east that's relevant, maybe UMBC. I think Sister Moore's here. You might find this out. There's one deposit amount and it covers all the things I'm going to talk about. But most of them break the deposits up. The housing deposit is mostly non-refundable, the first deposit. The larger deposits for housing are mostly refundable, but the typical $200 housing deposit, $300 housing deposit, it's not going to be refundable. Parent and youth orientation payment. Remember I said, how far will you go, you know? Now they're asking for payment for these, and it's usually a required event. Sometimes the parents required, sometimes not. The parents got to take the youth. There's going to be a payment for the orientation, and it's normally not refundable. None of these, I might add, are covered or is covered by financial aid. This has nothing to do with financial aid. These are mandatory deposits to start school, to enroll in school. And so that's why I was saying, if you do 3 or 4 schools, how far will you go? You got to have somewhere to stay and all that kind of stuff. Deposit for housing and orientation right away is my opinion. My opinion is you should do those right away. If you decide I'm going to a certain school, there should be the registration deposit and do the housing and orientation deposit right away. I even tell people you have to do short-term borrowing to do it, put it on a card, because you want to make sure you get the best choice of housing. You want to be rewarded for going early. Now, I admit, a lot of these schools have plenty of housing, so you're not going to have a problem. But there's some schools that do. And, you know, but you might as well get a blessing if you've decided early. Deposit in 2 schools should only occur when one is a desired waitlist college. That's right. If you put on a wait list and you really want a college, maybe you'll deposit for housing. Or the student has a good chance of more money coming from a school. And by the way, you should only deposit for waitlist colleges, it's the same, when there's a chance for something being different, like more money or something you know about waiting on that list. But actually, usually if you're on the wait list, you're going to have a reduction in financial aid. Every now and then, that's not true. What do I do about those waitlist colleges? Be sure to make all deposits for another school. Start planning to go to its orientation. So it's almost like you treat it like a rejection. Because you remember, if they come back to you on the wait list, you know, it'll be like June. I don't know when it'll be this year. That's an interesting question. When will they come back to wait list? Everything's so different this year. But it used to be June by the time they got back, and there was never any more, you know, need-based funds or university grants. And certainly not any merit awards if you're on the waiting list. Do not expect to hear positively from the wait list, especially if you're waiting for an appeal. See, when you're in an appeal, they sometimes say you're waiting. Don't bank on those. Sure, you want them to come through. Like say it's a local school you really want to go, you get on the wait list. Okay, fine. You know, you can go ahead and maybe expect something to happen. If you do hear positively, it could be as late as June 1st. Although this year, I don't know what's going to happen. There will be very reduced financial aid and grants and scholarships. The wait list can be as difficult to accept as a rejection. To me, they're all emotionally the same. Now, how do most parents pay the direct and indirect costs of college? Somebody asked me that this week, and I realized, you know, I've never really done that. I've never really directly answered it. How do people pay? By the way, let's talk about what direct and indirect means. Let me take a peek at who's here. There's somebody I know needs to hear this. Maybe they're out there. I don't know. All right. How most parents pay these. Now, what's direct cost? Direct cost means tuition, room, and board. Those are on your bill. They're typically on the bill. So those are the things that come under direct costs. Indirect costs are everything else. Indirect costs in practice only are about 10% of school costs. They seem like a lot, but they're really not. They could be up to 20 in some schools, but the lion's share of costs is the direct cost. So indirect costs is everything else. Spending money, books, some of the fees, but fees are usually direct costs because they're mandatory. Some that are non-mandatory wouldn't be. Like, for example, a parking fee is not a mandatory fee. Let's continue. May or June deposits. That's what I have there. I had to change these dates, of course. You have to use cash or credit. No loans are used at that point. Then you're going to have a thing called student loan activation. I'll have some view graphs to give the steps for that. You have to go on and activate your student loan. It says, I don't want to get the student loan. Well, it means I don't want my students to have. That's fine. That means you're going to look at the next view graph, which means you're going to pay for it all in cash. Right? If they don't have any other award that you think they'll get, then you'll pay it all in cash. Let's continue. Oops. Parent loan application. You may need a parent loan and approval up to the total college cost. And that's June through July typically. And I adjusted these dates. So June and July, you'll be doing these things. If everything stays on schedule, on the new schedule, and everything works fine. But you remember, you'll know after this meeting, I'm going to remind you, or I just did remind you, pretty much what you'll owe. If the parent loan is not approved, see the next slide. Books, material, personal student costs, and technology, those are all indirect costs, and you'll pay for those, usually when they go to school, August, July timeframe. Okay? This is kind of covering paying for college. I said I would cover that in quote part 2, and here we are. July 24 continuously. Yeah, continuously you'll be doing spending money. And then the second semester, you're going to repeat the books, right? Repeat the other indirect costs. How about cash payments for college? You might pay in cash. May 1st deposits, but it could be prior to that. And remember, I just said it could be June 1st. Sorry, I didn't catch this one. The first, it's going to cover the first. Well, then you're going to need a deposit before they start school, usually in July, for 1 to 3 months of dorm. Most schools are just having you pay 2 or 3 months up front, right? You have an upfront payment. And this is covered by financial aid. So that's why you want to get the loans done and all that. You'll see in just a moment how that relates to paying for college. Let's see. The first semester tuition and mandatory fees, you have to pay those in cash. Remember, this is a cash payment. But if you had loans, like on the last graph, I didn't bother to show these because the student direct loan usually covers the first dorm payment. Now, if you don't activate your student loan, suddenly you get this large bill for the dorm. They tell you can't occupy your dorm till it's paid because you put yourself on a cash payment. But the minute you tell them you activated your loan, they remove the bill. They're counting on that direct loan to pay the first few months or first couple months of your dorm. The first semester tuition is due. Remember, you repeat this second semester as well, and mandatory fees. Of course, these are happening July through August. It's my prediction. In many HBCUs, traditionally black colleges and other colleges, the first semester payment is required when you show up for college. You have to have paid off the entire first semester. So those of you who are planning to pay from a 529 or pay in cash, it all has to be paid. I usually tell people to pay in July. Remember, if you have financial aid, you have a student loan and a parent loan, you have other aid, of course, you would never have the problem because look at the heading for this page, cash payments for college without installments. This includes the amounts that are left over from the financial aid if you don't take out loans, Because sometimes a student will have a direct loan, they go ahead and activate it. But there's still $10,000, $12,000 if you're CSU and the cost that's needed. And now CSU would just bill you. And then your son or daughter has trouble during the semester of re-registering for classes. But they'll let you start, whereas Black schools and other colleges, not too many others, will say, we want all that money up front. The first semester balance is on the bill. The second semester is on hold for payment if you can't make those, right? And then you have books, materials, and all that kind of stuff, okay? I want to give you a sense of how the flow would go in paying for college. If there's any questions there, certainly want to let me know. Ooh, Brianna, do you have the slides for today? Did I share those with you? Hey, Brianna? Whoops. Did we lose you? I don't think I did. Quinn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, Brianna must be away for a second. Okay, well, I thought I shared that with you.
No.
Yes, I didn't. Okay, maybe when Brianna comes back, well, I think I shared it with her. Okay, let's continue. So parents, you'll get a copy of this. Okay, that happens through the year, of course. And here's where I put the student loan activation to show you where that is, because sometimes people will pay cash for the first semester part over here. Oops, I forgot I have my writing tool. They'll pay, oops, sorry about that. Sometimes they'll pay over here. They'll pay this in cash, right? And then this will be done with the loan over here, okay? Feel it just came back in. Okay. All right, any questions on that? I think not. Okay. Oops. I lose my cursor. Second. There it is. Okay, paying for college, student loan activation. I talked about that. You activate your, remember, the student loan is a entitlement program. You don't apply for it, you activate it. And I don't know if the schools are going to tell you this, so I will. Here are the steps for it right here. You go in, you have to log in with your student, with your username and password. You want to complete the entrance counseling. You have to have entrance counseling. And then you click, I'm an undergraduate student. Allow yourself an hour to do it. Unfortunately, the counseling is very tedious. After this, you get a master promissory note. If I did your FAFSA, let me know. I can do this for you, okay? If you need help with it, let me know. I think you should, if you get it, this is all after you've picked the school, okay? Remember, you want to have that housing potentially covered by the student loan. Hope you're getting that. This will activate the student loans for the first year. If you do not take out this loan, your first bill for college will freak you out. And it will freak you out because it'll cover 3 months in the dorm. And other funny things will begin to happen because the school begins to get concerned because they can tell when you've done this process. If you haven't done it, they get concerned they're not getting any money, but they're provided getting a room ready. They're very sharp-eyed on that, okay? Funny how they get when it's money they owe or money that's owed or something. They seem to come to life. Okay, the parent loan is the other thing you may have to do, right? Same thing there, parent, you can log in, you apply for aid and do the parent loan, and you'll know in 10 seconds whether you're approved. You select the school that gets it, select that you get the refund check from the loan. So you may overpay it with the loan, right? Because you're gonna let the school calculate it in that choice, but sometimes they overestimate and there's gonna be a refund. But make sure you check the box when asked, it says you get the refund check. God bless your students, but I don't think you want that to happen. You should have it and then give them money as they need it. Or to reimburse yourself, parents. Who's paying for the air tickets? Who's paying for the deposits? Who's paying for some of the books? I think y'all are. And the government intends for you to get the refund in that event. You will know you're approved in 10 to 13 seconds. If this is complete, you'll be allowed 10 minutes. Actually, you got to complete the master promissory note. Takes about 10 minutes to do that. Okay? You might want to keep this presentation for reference. Brianna, are you there? Brianna? And I don't see Bailey either, huh? Maybe you'll text Bailey, okay, or Christina.
Okay.
They can bail us out. I think I may have sent it to Christina. I think she'd be here. What will happen at the orientation? Students will learn about campus life. It's mandatory for CSU and UC. So CSU and UC used to, I don't think they can do this. Well, UC might be able to say that if you don't come to orientation, we're going to disenroll you. I don't think CSU can afford to do that this year. I just don't. I think their enrollment's down. Residential life, you'll have a residential life and residential agreement. Boy, I have a lot more to say about that, students. In about a month and a half, I'll start saying to you, this document has a lot of agreements that you're making that I need to tell you about, because my students occasionally run into trouble with it. And things are brought up on them, or things happen in the dorm. Because it covers, look, it doesn't only cover the dorm life, but look at the way it's worded. So a lot of times campus behavior is dealt with in here too, because you're living on the campus. Food, right? That's going to be mandatory in the first 2 years. Campus activities and organizations, social opportunities. We have a lot more to say about all these in the future session. I'll talk about those sessions at the very end. Social opportunities. This is stuff you learn at orientation. Academic departments in life. And you get to meet some of your professors, some professors. Course registration begins. You meet your advisor. These are things that all happen at orientation. Orientation is very important. Parents will learn how and when to pay. All the stuff I talked about a minute ago. Parent organizations on the campus, parents you'll learn about. They may be a parent organization. Health services, student records. They get to tell you stuff, and you get to start thinking about some things that you never thought about before that the federal law doesn't provide coverage for. For example, you'll learn that the medical records belong to the student. And so you have to have a conversation about, I'll do view graphs on that before you go, don't worry. I do a lot on that. I'm really covering that a lot this year. Deadlines for your payments, the payments I talked about before, they'll start telling you there about it. Cash payment options, you'll find out they have an installment program. Most universities have an installment plan, and the fee to do installments is not that bad, actually. So most now they have a deadline for getting on the installment plan, and usually that's exceeded too, and that's why there's this big bill to move in the dorm. Black schools do that a lot. You have to be very careful. Some state schools, very fair about it, do that. They'll say, we got to know by August 1st whether you're going on installment. And you show up and you didn't sign up for the installment plan. So you definitely want to think about that, and you learn about that in orientation. Schools are not good at when they email you about the stuff. They don't point it out. It's in an email with a lot of other stuff. Maybe the student didn't forward it to you because they're telling the student this stuff. Orientation is really important, parents. You probably need to be there, and plan to be there. What do I need to know about housing? Hey, I have about 7 view graphs on housing. I didn't do them all today. I really love talking about it. Talking about housing is very important, but I'll cover only what you need right now. The deposit not later than 2 weeks prior to decision day is my recommendation. So by May 15th, if it's a June 1st school, you got to deposit for your housing. May 1st, you got to do it by April 15th. But I don't think anybody's doing May 1st. I don't know. I better take that back. There's probably some selective school that's still doing that. Students sign the residential agreement. There I go again. Read it carefully. Pay your first housing payment. Most times, get this, many times, it's prior to the financial aid crediting, but it's something that schools are doing right now with that first payment. If your income is below a certain amount at some schools, certainly if you get a Pell Grant, they'll waive the initial or shrink the payment real small, and you can get around it. But if you didn't have a Pell Grant and you have loans, that payment may come due before the loans credit. And that's when you go to the school and you go on a payment plan, you get your loan, and they don't see you anymore. So sometimes you need a payment plan because you can't make that first payment. And you need your parent loan parents to pay for that first payment. Sometimes the house first payment is pretty high. I'm thinking about a San Francisco State, if you don't have a Pell Grant, I think it's like $4,500. So you gotta figure that out. I don't think we're sending anybody there, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm trying to think if there's any other CSUs that do that. I think San Jose State has a pretty large deposit too. And so does Northridge. This is why I'm telling you about these ahead of time. Monthly dormant payments begin when the FAFSA runs out in the first and second semester. So if your financial aid, that's financial aid, runs out, say you had the first semester cost $35,000 and you only had $27,000 in financial aid or $30,000. Well, at some point, your financial aid will run out and you'll start owing dorm payments. See that? Whereas if your financial aid is all resolved of loans or whatever, you never make a dorm payment. Okay? Because the school.
Thank you for your poll of the day.
That's fine.
It could only be one.
Alexa, stop.
Thanks for taking the poll.
I don't know why Alexa started talking to me. All right, anyway, your monthly dorm payments begin when the financial aid runs out. If the financial aid fully covers the school costs and the PLUS loan covers all else, no housing payment will be needed, right? More about housing. Roommate tips, part one. I think I only did 1 and 2. I don't know how many students. I know I have Jada. Let me see what students I have here. Let's see. Garen's here. Hi, Garen. Garen's here. Garen's here. Jada's here. Hey, Jada, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
All right, Kayla, you here? Kayla? Kayla, can you hear me? I think people are like not hearing me or something. All right, Garen, did you hear me? I probably put people to sleep, right? Roommate tips. I'll go through them anyway. Do not live alone, especially in your freshman year. It's a clue. Let me say this right, okay? It's a clue that you, the student, are not ready to live away from home if you have to live alone. If you live alone, your chances of coming home early are very good. You need socialization and making friends and acquaintances your first year. And by the way, it's a big part of college life. A common cause, in my experience, is loneliness and depression, i.e. a lack of connection. You need to have a roommate. So I'm a private person. Well, that's something for you to grow out of, actually, because, we're social beings and you'll have to eventually have jobs and you have to work close with people. You may travel and they make you take a roommate. Who knows? Recommendation: do not room with a friend, family, or anyone you have known outside of school. I know a lot of you feel that if they know someone, they can room together, but those don't work out so well all the time, including a friend of your parents' children. I would not room with a friend. Hey, look, think about it this way. Look at this next thing here. If you go ahead and if you two know each other and each of you get a roommate, look at that. The first day of school, all four of y'all know two new people. Okay? Relationships are very important in the first semester because in the first year, you got to socialize. So that way you're ready the second year to find yourself a roommate. University's not going to find one for you. The housing staff will survey you, the freshman student, and suggest a pool of roommates or a roommate. Now, lately, schools have been doing this. Often they will share social media of other students to stimulate conversation and for you to find out if you want to be a roommate. These are people you haven't met. They will share yours too. Check this out. More about housing. The housing staff, oh, wait a minute, did this one do the same thing? Oh, yeah, that's right. The social media sharing I talk about. Transgender students will room separately. But in many schools, listen to this, lesbian and gay students may be in your pool. And I say this is a tolerance versus approval issue. It's your first mature challenge. You'll be fine if you're secure in yourself. Definitely, the institution will push you towards other races, white, native, Asian, and Hispanic. They want to mix the races up. To which you may say, well, that's why I'm going to go to the black dorm. Hey, you may go ahead and do that, but I'm telling you, the more interaction you can have with other ethnicities prepares you for your professional career, and you can still hang with the black folks. Okay? Why don't you do both? I have a lot more to say about that later, right? Here's some basic things about food, because some of you are going to go out and start depositing. So I've got some of you, before I see you again, will need to make deposits. So we have to cover that. Let me see. Did you tell Christina about that, Quinn? Aha, there it is. Received from where? Oh, received from Brianna. Got it. Okay. All right. So in the chat is this presentation. There's a PDF of it there. Thank you. Thanks for not giving up on me, guys. Appreciate that. It's usually paid at the same time as the housing, the food. Here you go. The options are usually for 7, 14, or 11, or 21 meals per week. And right away, all y'all will think, okay, I'm getting a 21 meal plan. No. When kids go away, they don't have 3 meals a day. I'm very sorry. Now, they eat in between and they graze. So I like schools that go, you could do 11 or 14, then you have a cash allotment too. Those are really the best situations. But you do what makes you comfortable. But remember, I think Brianna knows this, if you don't use your food money, you lose it. So that's why you see kids running around the last week of the semester trying to eat extra food to give their points away. I visited a campus once, the exam week. All the kids were trying to feed me. I think I had 2 meals inside of 2 hours. Then I had one before I left. Students will not sit down for 3 meals a day. Meals that are not used are lost. I just said that. Many campuses have other eating options on campus where they can use food card or cash, by the way, or the food card has cash on it, or get a meal way reduced on the campus. Recommendation, I pick 7, 11, or 14. You can add dollars when needed. Okay, that covers a very important part of this process. Let's see. Make sure nobody's asking me anything. Nope. Okay. What about 2-year college? Don't just throw them away. They still have a use. Remember, there are 2 uses for 2-year college. One for credit recovery. Hopefully you won't need it. That's a very nice way of saying recovery enhanced, that you got a D or F, now you have to do something about it. So 2-year colleges are very useful for that. Work that with your advisor. You can make up courses. But I think you should start this summer. Wow, more on that in a minute. Because a lot of you feel like summer's the time to rest. Unless you have a school that starts in July 31st or August 1st, and some of you will, because I think black schools start very early. Then again, you still might be able to do an online thing. So see the next slide. Alternative to the first year or 2 years of college. So it's an alternative for students who want to save money for college. They can go to 2-year college for 1 or 2 years and can save money. But for most of you, it's going to be this first option, this credit recovery option. Okay. Trade Tech, El Camino College, y'all know what I like. What do I need to know about class registration? Again, I kept this very basic for now. Things to be done. The registration process usually begins at orientation. Sometimes it's just online. And there may be, parents, some frustration as you see the school dealing with your student and not knowing your student, they're treating everybody the same. And there will be a little frustrating. You'll feel either your students aren't moving quick enough or they're not asking questions. And that's a good way schools get you ready for when they go away to college. We'll talk a lot about with parents about how you deal with a college student, how you productively move forward. Students learn how to register, and then they often forget how to register. That's going to happen. Treat your advisor like a true advisor, students, not your life director. So I'm going to help you here with what you should be telling them. Here's some general education classes which students have done. I got a list here. Got a better list later. I think you'll like the better list. Just wait for these classes to open. I have a better list to read later on this presentation. Here are the classes that, most schools will require in that first semester. Intro to writing, university life class, some kind of math for engineering students, biology, chemistry for pre-med students, some kind of intro to business for business majors, plus a general ed course. That's typically what will be on there. If you look at it in terms of credits, I always say take about 16 to 18 credits per semester. Now, it could include courses you take in the summer. That'd be fine. But you should end up having 16 to 18 credits. There's a reason why. That way, if something goes wrong, you can still make up a class and be on target. Here's another typical schedule I've seen. English, intro to your life, intro class for your major. These are for the non-tech majors. General ed course, you can see this adds up here to 16 credits. You just get general ed courses to get that number up. They're going to try to offer you a really low amount, 13 sometimes, but you pay the same for college all the way up to 18 credits usually. We want you to add these extra 2 classes in the summers, including starting this summer. To graduate, listen to this, to graduate in 4 years, you need to average 15 to 16 credits. That's why the big deal about the 16 to 18. Look for engineering what you need each semester. Some semesters engineering, you'll have 20, 21 credits. Okay, so you need to use the summers, that's my opinion. Here's a little something I put together on the fly here last night for your career planning purposes. I'm big into career these days. For STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math careers, you're going to take pre-calculus or calculus in the summer, whichever was not taken in high school. Somebody said, well, I took calculus in high school. All right, that's fine. Why don't you take, depends on if you're engineering, I would take a physics class, something that's transferable to that engineering degree. But usually one of those 2 you need. One general ed, by the way, if you had AP calculus in high school, spoiler alert, most engineering schools will not accept it as transferable. They'll accept it as a general ed class. So you'll need to take calculus from 2-year college. Hey, go ahead. What you worried about? Go ahead and ace it. Health careers. That'll help your GPA too, right? For health careers, including pre-med, take lab biology and one general ed course. Other careers, take 2 to 3 general ed courses. I really think don't waste the summer. You can take courses online. You can get a hold of me. I can show you some very creative ways to take classes. But don't let this summer go by and you don't have any college credits when you get to college. It removes the risk of a difficult first semester. Sometimes the best students struggle the first semester, then things click into place usually. Then other times they don't, but how do you know? The most worthwhile general education program, this is the list I was talking about. This is up to date and current, given my current students, I just dropped my marker. Introduction to speech. First year of writing or lead in writing class. How about that? If you know you're not too good in writing, go into the 2-year college, ask them for a placement test. They won't give you one, but ask them for it, then they'll give it to you. And see where you are in your writing. You can never be too good at writing. Writing is going to be a class that's a challenge for some of you that first year. It's very different in college. Intro to sociology, art history. These are some classes recent students have taken. Intro to art, music appreciation. And pretty much they do well in these classes. I think an intro to speech one is very strategically important because you're going to be asked to do a lot of oral presentations in your classes. Introduction to American history, an introduction to political science. These are the classes I saw the most the last 2 years, that first semester of college. Okay, and that's where you can take them in the summer and take off some of the they're always transferable too. You don't have to worry. If you stick to these titles, they'll be transferable to your college. Now, there's a couple of college, or the general ed, they're always transferable. Doesn't need that long. Alphabet soup. Yeah, might as well get you ready for some letters. SAP means satisfactory academic progress. And you have to meet this requirement to play in athletics and to keep your financial aid. You must have a cumulative GPA of 2.0 and 12 minimum credits per semester. Now, you have 12 credits. You got to be careful because you could easily fall below that and lose your financial aid. This is another reason to have 15 or 16. Okay? And this one's important too because let's say you do fall below 12 to 10, right? That happened to one of my students. They dropped some kind of exercise course. They fell to 10 and they got straight A's, but they were put on probation because they didn't make satisfactory progress. You have to meet the credit requirement and the GPA requirement. So I said, what happens if you don't meet the requirements? They warn you, they put you on probation. Now, it depends on how low you were, because I think they should tell you more than that. If you were 1.2 or something, now in order to have a 2.0 for the year, you have to get nearly a B average the second semester. And they should tell you that. I mean, hopefully you'll never run into this. That's another reason to take the classes in the summer. 75% progress checks for degree. Yeah, they also check later on when you get to your third and fourth year. Are you making progress towards your degree? That's another criteria for satisfactory progress. Are you taking the right classes to get your degree? It usually comes up the third year and the fourth year. What happens if SAP is not reached in the first semester probation? Okay. After stop out, 95% of students, in my experience, will not return to their first campus. So it's a big deal, stop out. Stop out is when you get sent home because of probation, then you don't make it. Now you have to go home for a semester. Usually send you home for one semester, which is the first semester of the second year. Then if you get the right amount of grades and they let you back, but most students don't come back after that. That's the importance of our upcoming sessions in May through June. We're going to have some really cool sessions I'll talk about in a minute. This is the earliest I ever talked about them to help students succeed on the college campus. Why do students stop out of college? Insufficient funds for college. That would be #1 nationwide. Why students stop out. In my program, it's not that usually. Usually people go to school and they know what they're going to pay. Now, occasionally when there's a student who didn't come to the meetings or the parent got my emails but was too busy, I see students coming home because of money, or I get a call, is there anything we can do? We can't pay for it. Something changes. like a loss of your merit award or your athletic scholarship. Students have to come home. Inadequate understanding of what it would cost, how the payments would be made, which is why I'm covering that today. Some students come home at Christmas and don't go back because they couldn't pay the first semester. I had one like that the other day. I feel so bad when that happens and they're home and they can't go back. Loans are too high. The job situation changes and miracles do not happen. Social conflict and detachment. That's a big one. Depression and dysfunction. Students can't go back to school. They have to stop out. Professorial radicalization. Oh, this is huge. When they meet a professor who consumes their life and gets them doing protests and writing things, and their activism absorbs all their interests. They lose an interest in school. They feel the establishment is, never mind. I've had at least 12 to 14 students stop out of college over this. I have a lot more to say about that in a future meeting, probably pretty soon, actually. Probably that's why a good idea to look up what's going on in your campuses, especially today with my roommates telling me all the pressure on Jewish students. And some of them are their roommates. And they're seeing Black students who they're friends with are joining in those protests against Jewish students. And I just think that that's an unfortunate occurrence. I've done some videos on it, so you know how I think. General lack of adjustment to living away from family. Students come home, can't adjust. Chronic physical or mental illness. Yeah, mental illness comes up. The tip-off is if you're a student or you know if you're a student, you're having some mental illness issues, that's a factor to consider. And how often will you return home? Maybe there's more trips home. Did you have to address that? Now, I used to not cover stopping out at this time, but I found out I should cover it now so you can factor it into your college decision. Of course, lack of academic success, lack of preventative measures being taken. We're going to talk a lot about that, what preventative measures you should take, what things you should be doing all the time to maintain a high academic profile. Here's our answer to college stopout, a college success prep program. We've had it every year for the last 15 years. There's some shocking stats about college success in a Forbes magazine article. Listen to this. Less than 50% of middle-class students, that should be, finish college in 4 years. Less than 60% in 6 years. So it's a silent problem that nobody likes to talk about. Now, in our program, we don't see it as much for a lot of reasons, even for people who are just looking at my videos, even people who get an email and then they call and ask me questions, but it's a factor in people outside of the program. And some of you here in this video, maybe you've seen it because you clicked it up. It was suggested to you by YouTube. To fight stopout, we have our college success prep program, or we used to call it life confirmation program. The mission statement: to give our high school graduates the knowledge, encouragement, information, spiritual strength, and minor funding to go to college in 4 to 5 years. We have a small scholarship program attached to it. Not going to get you rich, but it's a little bit of something. That's for students who actually attend the sessions, right? We have sessions, and then we have a ceremony that we're going to have in July. I'm hoping we can have in July. I think we can. We're trying to stall and get into the new building, which is our Family Life Center in West Angeles. It's complete now. They're just figuring out how to utilize that building best. It's mandatory to attend those sessions in order to receive a sponsorship from our program. The highest awards will be for those who participate in the sessions and in the ceremony. Okay. All right. Here are the topics covered. Sorry, I didn't change the class there. This ain't high school. We're going to have a speaker in to talk to you about how to succeed academically. A very well-known speaker. Race, ethnicity, and college success. I'm going to talk about that. Career in college. I'm going to do a lot on career this year. May have somebody come in and help me with that too. That's a huge thing. Using the college efficiently for your career. You just the cost of college, you don't have time to shuck a buck around with that. Shuck a buck, my dad used to say that. Social relationships, we gotta talk about that, how to deal with the opposite sex. Professors' teachings versus your family values. Whoa, that's a big one. Gender challenges, another big one. Much, much more. It'll typically be on Saturday mornings. We haven't got the schedule yet. It'll be in June, July, hopefully in our Family Life Center. The registration will be online and it'll be free. They just need to attend regularly to get the full benefit of date and time will be announced at that time. All right, as I said, that was a pretty